Okay, welcome everybody to another class 2 of preparation or preparing for a home. Today's class we're going to discuss how to make a chassidishe home. It's a beautiful little sikha, and it's very good. Also, it will give us the opportunity to learn a lot of important ideas of the process of learning chassidus. Meaning, you're going to learn the sikha and you're going to say to yourself, how do I understand this? How do I learn this? How do I think about this? So that's what we're going to do. That's part of what we're going to do. Because I remember when I was a bach, before I understood chassidus properly, you take everything very literal, you read it, you translate it, and you don't know how to extrapolate on that. So before we start, I wanted to share something. If you learn Rambam every day, and Ravkah Ram, I'm fortunate enough to learn 3 prakim. So something, when I was in yeshiva in Mayinot, I was actually dating my wife, so I missed this class. But Sheish Tab spoke. It went about the map of Tanya. You know the map of Tanya? Yeah, you know that map of Tanya? The Sheish Tab made? The map. Have you heard of the map of Tanya? We have it, we have to put it up. It's basically Sheish Tab. You know Sheish Tab, yeah? So he made, this was like when he's, you a native to him? Oh wow, beautiful. Welcome. So welcome. See? It's Karnheitstein. So Sheish Tab, so he made a map of Tanya, and basically, what happened was he would learn Tanya every year in Chitas, and he always got confused. When he said we got to chapter 18, he's like, where are we going? I don't get it. So he decided 1 year he's gonna jot it down and figure out what's the process, what's going on. And then he ended up doing it, and then he turned it into a map. Basically, every chapter is summarized in 1 sentence, 2 sentences. And he made it into a map, and it's color-coded, and it shows different sections. You can find it online. It's a must-have in a chassidishe home, unless you know Tanya Baal Peh, and even then, if you're a kid, whatever, it's beautiful. So he was giving the class of the map of Tanya, and one of the discussion happened. I wasn't there. I was out with my wife at the time, or not yet wife. When I came back, everyone said it was a big uproar, and everyone was discussing. What were they discussing? They were complaining that he was saying that you shouldn't say, my friends, you shouldn't say, I forgot one thing. Just a quick interruption. This class is sponsored. Thank you very much for the sponsorship. This class is sponsored by Rochel Gringras in honor of the special women of Living Chassidus who are working during Moshiach. And sons by Ravkah Ram, sorry, my phone. Little nishmas, Emma Bas Francesca. That their sponsorship should serve them well, and amidst Hashem, with all of us and all our efforts, when we take what we learn and we apply it, it's the biggest gift we can give them. And also goes online and everyone can see it. So there's a big uproar. And I come back and I'm acting cool like nothing happened. I'm like, what's going on? And everyone's like, oh, Sheish Tab said that you shouldn't say when you learn a sikha the Rebbe and you go to give it over, you shouldn't say the Rebbe says in the sikha. It's plagiarism. The Rebbe learned and he's sharing with you and you're saying you're putting your own word, you're making it your own. It's not right, it's wrong. It was a big thing and a whole discussion about this. And everyone's like arguing. And I was probably on the side of everyone else. Yeah, he's right. Who's he? How can I take it? It's not, I'm just being honest. I'm not smart. I can't figure these things out myself. It's like disingenuous to say a whole vart and make people believe that it was my idea. It wasn't. So, but that's what he was saying. And then when I started to learn chassidus a little bit and I understood it a little bit better, I started to get what he was saying and it all made sense. I think also Ivana Strieben talks about this. So when I was learning Rambam, so Rambam says today in Sheish Prakim, the 5th parak, the Hilchos Talmud Torah, he said like this. He goes, one should not repeat something. He said, at any time that he mentions a teaching in his presence, that someone is saying something in the presence of his teacher, he should say, so you taught us, a teacher. One should not repeat something he did not hear from his teacher without mentioning who said it. When his teacher passed away, man should render old days of clothing, whatever. But he's saying, he should always say what his teacher said. My teacher told me this. He should never say, it shouldn't be plagiarism. Now, this is in exact contradiction to what Sheish was saying. Sheish was saying, hey, just don't say the Rebbe's name, say your own name. You don't say your own, just say it. You don't have to, that's what the Rebbe says. Say you said it. So how does that work with what I'm saying? So there's a note here, a little part of the Sikha, and it's like this. And this is such a beautiful part, and this is a perfect hachana for general learning chassidus, and tonight. So this is what he says. Our sages taught, one who says a statement in the name of the one who said it brings redemption to the world. Anyone know where that's from? Pikei Avos in Parak Vav. So then this in a few weeks, you'll say it and you'll remember it. So this is also an halachic obligation. One who does not say a teaching in the name of the author transgresses prohibition. Bring down halacha, you have to say this. So, however, we find many Talmudic sages who did not quote the original author of the statement. Most notably, Rabbi Eliezer the Great was described as never saying anything he did not hear from his teacher. That was his thing. I'm not going to say anything if I didn't hear from my teacher. But nevertheless, we find many teachings without mentioning his teacher's name. Furthermore, we know that he had more than one teacher, and we therefore cannot assume that, it's not like everything I say is from my teacher, and he had one teacher. And so then everything he said, like, hey, you got it. It's that one teacher. He had different teachers. So he's not saying in their names. He's also going against this rule, this idea. So how does this work? So the explanation is like this. And this is such a beautiful part. Rabbi Eliezer did not merely repeat what his teachers taught him, but worked hard to understand those teachings fully until his own intellect necessitated these same ideas. When he taught those ideas afterwards, they become his own. And he taught them as such. So you see this concept that by fully understanding it, idea becomes your own in the fact that the Torah teachings are attributed to the scholar, not to Hashem. Torah, everything we learn in Torah is really from Hashem. But we don't say it's Hashem. Hashem came with Hashem's Torah, it's mine. Why? As Rashi teaches, at first the Torah is called Hashem's Torah. Now, once someone has learned it, it can be called their Torah. We see from here that once one learns and understands the teaching, it becomes their own. And the same applies to Rabbi Eliezer. He was able to teach these ideas on his own name without violating this prohibition, since he had fully assimilated them to his own intellect. Does anyone get what it's saying?
It has to be your, in order for you to be able to teach it to someone else in a real way, it has to be yours first. That's why you say, it's said in your name, and you could say your name. It's because you were able to internalize it in such a way that it became part of you, and then that's the best way that you're able to teach it to others.
Exactly. And that's what Sheishta was saying. The problem is like this: when I was a Ravkah, I did this as well. You learn a sikha, and you go to a mill, shasal, and you try to be all good, and you know how to say something. She said, the Rebbe says a question, the Rebbe says an answer, the Rebbe says, and essentially what you're saying is, this is what the Rebbe's opinion is. What do I know? I have no clue. I don't care. Nothing to do with me.
Understandable, because it's good to source things. It's not like you're paraphrasing what they're saying. You're saying, well, the Rebbe said X, Y, and Z. You're not mixing up his viewpoint.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, it seems like, but why can't I be honest with what's? Does anyone know how to explain?
That you definitely say, yes, the Rebbe says this in the Sikha, and then you continue with your explanation and you bring it down to more of how you internalized it, so that it comes across as more, people will understand it better, and also people will gravitate toward your explanation because it came from you and how you related to it, and then it will help them to relate to themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Meaning when you learn, imagine you learn something. So let's say we learn a sikha there. It's about a Rashi. Now, there's two ways to learn it. And this applies to all learning, and that's why it's such a beautiful art. So you learn it, and the Rebbe says there's a question on Rashi. Rashi is chassidishe, the simple meaning of the pasuk, and he's giving a medrash meaning. Why is he giving a medrash meaning? So the Rebbe gives you a whole answer. It's because he's talking about this and this and that. So you can learn that, and you can repeat that and give it over. And the question the Rebbe had is not your question. Okay, like you told me, so yeah, I hear that question. But you can work on yourself, and you can think about it, and you can make that question become your question. You're like, hey, you know what? It's a good question. Like how, like, you know, what's going on over here? Why isn't why is Rashi doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Rashi says his idea is to make it the simple explanation. He's giving this whole long explanation. What's going on over here? And what's the difference? One is it becomes your question. And then, yeah, of course, you can say the Rebbe said in the Sikha, but when you speak, there's a passion, there's a fire. It's my question. It's not the Rebbe's question. You know, when I was in yeshiva, I wasn't, everyone knows probably by now, like I wasn't like the best student. I barely learned. I wasn't always such a good, we didn't connect with learning. But I remember I had a very good teacher in Maino, Rabbi Cohen, and he knew what he's tried to do is make it your question. Like you'd learn Tosfos. So he wouldn't just say, let's read Tosfos. He'd ask you questions, and you would give answers and try, and he'd bring you to try to get you to have Tosfos' question. Do you know how to make it, what's the name? That I'm just on the screen? I don't know how to do it on this for some reason. Maybe it's, yeah. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, so I like this was before I got married. So it's like 14 years ago. I don't remember exactly the Gemara, but I remember, and like we learned and I understood it well. And Tesa's question was how to understand the Gemara. How did the Gemara like the question? And I got it. Like I really I got it, meaning like in my kishkas, I felt it. And it's a good question. And I remember we got the answer, and the answer was like, it was an answer, but it didn't, the question bothered me. So I remember after, then we had like mincha, and we had lunch. I had my friend of mine in a different shit, and I'm like, hey, JJ, come. Like there's a question here, you got to hit this question. So I called, it's during break, which I never did during break. We sat down, opened the Gemara, and I asked him, and I read to him the Gemara, and I said, this is the Gemara. This is how we learn Pshat. I said, but 1 second, what about this? And I asked him the question. I didn't say, look, let's read Tosfos. I asked the question because it was bothering me. And he goes to me, okay, yeah, here, so what's your answer? I'm like, no, you don't, it's not bothering you. It bothers me. Like, and this is sort of the point of learning. This is what they were saying. Rabbi Lezer Gadol, he didn't say everything in his teacher's name because he took his teacher's teaching, he learned it, and he made it his. He thought about it and he connected with it until it became his question. And this is in essence the key to learning, to understanding chassidus well. Understanding anything you learn in Torah is making your question. It takes time to learn how to do it. And even when you do it, it takes time, but it's a whole different experience. And so this is what we learned in today's Ramam. And today we're going to learn the Sikha. So this is a very interesting Sikha. It's very short. It's only 2 pages. And it's a discussion how to build chassidishe home. It's a very interesting story. But you'll learn and you'll say to yourself, it's a nice idea. But what does that mean to me? Like, so how do I apply this? And so Bashar Chafat is in today's Ramam, this whole part. We have to think about it. It's very interesting. So I'll say the story that comes in a little later, but we'll say it now, and then you'll understand all these people. So there's 2 people in the front, whoever no one's online, but we have this here. 2 people, there's Ravkah Ram and Chaim Brisker. Does anyone know who they are? Not heard of them before? What did you guys know about them before this? Anything?
Ravkah was a genius. He wrote a lot. He had correspondence with the Rebbe a lot. He was a very, very holy man, and Ravkah Ram was a literature Rav.
Yeah.
Who was a big guy in the literature Rav.
Yeah. So Soloveitchik, we know from YU, it's like his great grandfather. And he had a way of learning. So as we see here, we have if Yosef Rosen was Rochel Gringras, he was also like a chassid. he liked the bottom. He was very sharp. He didn't stand for anything no nonsense. And people write questions for him. He would answer back on their postcard. They wrote it with just with places, sauces. He wouldn't explain, just write the sauce. And so like Ruth is saying, there's a whole correspondence in him and the Rebbe, like the sauces. Just writing like Gemara, Daf, whatever, Sarta Psachim, check over there, check over there. And the Rebbe right back, what about this and this and this and this? It wasn't like, what does it say? Don't let me explain it to you. It was just sauces. And he was very, and they say about the Ravkah Ram that he wouldn't, the Rebbe talks about him a lot in Sichos, brings him down. And his way of learning, not too knowledgeable in it, but he tried to like keep himself pure in the sense that he would learn like until the Rambam, and then he would think for himself. And then after he'd have these questions, he'd try to figure it out, and then he'd check with the later codifiers and like Shulchan Aruch and stuff to see. And he really liked his thought. So you'll see, so when we're talking about in the Sikha, so one time there's the Ravkah Ram, which is his genius. His name was Ravkah Ram Gaon. It's not just, he's called a genius. That was his title. People called him genius. There was the Ravkah Ram and Chaim Soloveitchik. And like Rita said, Chaim Soloveitchik was a Litvisher and Ravkah Ram was the chassid. Chaim Brisker was a rabbi and Talmudic scholar credited as the founder of the popular Brisk approach to Talmudic study in Judaism. He also a member of the Soloveitchik dynasty and the son of Weiss Halevi. So they're together. It's two giants. And so the Ravkah Ram had a question, and this is how he would think. So he said, there's an obligation of a husband to a wife when they get married to clothing, food, clothing, and intimacy. It says in the Ksuva, these are the obligations that a husband has. So the Ravkah Ram asked like this: is the obligation an ongoing obligation? Meaning, is it every day? Is that obligation renews itself? Or is that obligation began by the wedding? That was when it happened, and then the rest of the marriage is a continuation. So you're gonna ask yourself, well, what's the difference? So what's the practical difference? It's very interesting. The practical difference is what happens if a person has two wives. Now, use the thinking caps. If a person has two wives, so according to the opinion that when you got married, that's when the obligation was. And the rest of the time of marriage, it just continues from that. So then, who are you more obligated to? The first wife or the second wife?
Why? Because it's a new marriage, so it starts new on the new one, but you still have the obligation.
I would say the obligation may be on the first, because it's been for longer. And what happens? So now let's answer the other. What happens if the way to think about it is that it's every moment a new thing? So then whose obligation is more?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's both equal. But every moment, it's a new moment, it's equal. So this was his this is how he'd think. So it was Chaim Brisker. So he told him this thing that he's thinking about. It's Chakira. It's like, how do we look at it? So Chaim Brisker says to him, Mazel Tov. So he goes, Mazel Tov. Why is he Mazel Tov? He goes, because according to the second opinion, it's every single moment. So you just got married. So Mazel Tov. You say Mazel Tov, I get married. It's very interesting. Okay, so we'll read the Sikha. It's not so long. And also you have to, it's beautiful because it's just so good. And the Rebbe is sharp a little bit. You'll hear the Rebbe you don't see on Gem, and he'll say a little bit of some sharp words. But again, like we learned before, we learn to understand and make it our own. And so we're going to talk about this. There's a story of the Frierdiker Rebbe we're going to bring down of how he prepared his new home. And the Rebbe says that what we hear from this story, there's a lot to learn, and also we can apply for ourselves in our daily lives, and ourselves as preparation for marriage. Yeah, the Frierdiker Rebbe says in regards to himself, this was in 1964 on Yud Shvat for rain, Yud Al Shvat. In regards to marriage. So anyone know what happened when Frierdiker Rebbe got married? How was his preparation for new home? Where did he live? No one knows. Today you're going to find out. Also, yeah. Or Rodden?
Did he live in Rodden?
I think he lived in Lubavitch.
Right?
Yeah. So you're going to learn that. And also, I wanted to ask, when we all say that, especially when you're dating, you put up on a resume, people talk about their homes. Want a chassidishe home or want a home full of guests, things like this. What do you guys want your home to look like? I'm asking, guests.
I think everyone said the same thing.
Yeah, but clearly everyone, this is very true. And clearly this is one of the funny things about shidduchim and resumes. You look at them, like everyone looks the same. But you know that everyone means something different. So what does it mean, guests? It mean guests during the week?
No.
No, yeah. That's a definite no. That's like until Shabbos, I don't want to see it. Yom Tov.
I don't know. I didn't like sit down with myself and decide every single thing.
Shabbos.
Shabbos meal.
Yeah, Shabbos like maybe one meal, not posters.
And during the week, because you have him open or no one's coming?
Sure, right now.
No.
Yeah, I'm open house. Depends too.
Depends who's coming in. Okay, so let's see how it was in Lubavitch, how they started at home. Oh yeah, Magdama, Shleimus Adam. This is also, we've said this before in the Chassidus, and you see it comes here. The Shleimus Adam, Maschila Michai Nisuin. The completeness of a person begins when we get married. Like Gemara brings down from the pasuk, a proof from the pasuk says, Zachon Akeva Baram, male and female, he created them. He blessed them. Shmam Adam, he called them Adam. But what we see here, the true drawing down of blessings from above begins because what does it in the pasuk? It says Zachor Nekeva Baram, but Yivarach when he blessed them. Specifically, when you get married, you get the blessings. That's why you have to go get married. You have to figure it out. That's where the real blessings come.
What are the blessings if we get them?
One of the blessings
An open channel, a new open channel.
for everything you want. Parnasa, I don't know, it doesn't say here, but just think about it. Whatever you want. Parnasa, you're having children, purpose, meaning, shluchus, everything. Think about all the brachas you want, and that's what you're going to get. And I'm not joking about that, by the way. We have to know what we want, and that's how we get it. Not in a way of a half body, a completeness of the person. We get married, we complete, we come together. Until you get married, you're half. You have the other half running around somewhere doing whatever they're doing. Hopefully they're doing good things. And you come connected. The general idea of marriage, is called an everlasting edifice. One of the preparations for marriage is not just about figuring out how you're going to support yourselves, like the vineyard, working in the field. What are you going to do? Elegam binyan bais. You have to have a house. Bana bais. You create a house. And afterwards, Arash Isha, then you can have a completeness of marriage. Rambam, and he brings it down from the Rambam, because Rambam says, it's very interesting. Rambam, he says, the order should be first you get a job, then you get a house, and you get a wife. Because you shouldn't do the other way, because then you're going to get stuck, and then you're going to be a poor person. Nowadays, this is not the custom, and then Rambam is not who we follow necessarily in all halachas. But this is what the Rebbe is saying. That one of the things we have to have, to get married, you have to have, besides getting a husband and wife, you have to have a way of figuring out how to make money, and you also have to have a place to live. Now, back in the day in Lubavitch, I don't think they could rent houses or rent apartments. Didn't exist. So what do they do? So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains how it was his preparations for marriage, to build his house. Bagdama, prefacing. So this is going to be the Rebbe's little shtechs, Rebbe's little jabs. He goes, nowadays the custom is First of all, thousands of dollars. We spend $1,000 for things just for the one day. Before this, we bring $1,000 for even before the wedding for things. And afterwards, we spend all this $1,000 of things that are superficial. We think there's a need for after the wedding. Only afterwards, then after all this, we're thinking about what are we going to give for the meal for the poor. Now you meant to, by the wedding, meant to have a table for poor people, and also there's meant to be a suda the night before. That people do it for poor people. It's an Indian.
People do it.
People do it?
I don't know.
The table for sure, by the wedding, yeah. You all see a table. It's like a random table, and all these people come. Yeah.
Can you donate towards like place that does it?
What exactly? How it could be, but this is one of the things I'm talking about. We have to think at the wedding. Yeah, I don't know how it works the night before, but this is the point. The Rebbe is trying to give over a message, and this is something we can internalize. What the Rebbe is telling us, the Rebbe is saying that nowadays we went spend. When I was getting married, so I was getting married in Alabama. You can imagine. You guys don't know, probably don't know half of you know where it is. I was coming from Australia. So I was like, this place, and I thought no one's going to come. And I was worried and all these things, and we're trying to get someone to play music. And who's playing music in Alabama? But it's funny, in the end, Benny Friedman played. But, yeah, but like that wasn't. So I was back home in Australia, and I went to a Shabbat, like I went after my meal to my friends. All my friends were mostly married, and we're talking, and I'm like stressing out about who's going to play music at the wedding. And one of my friends, he told me, he goes, "Listen, welcome." So one of my friends told me, he goes, "Listen, the wedding is 8 hours, or it's 5 hours. Sachakol, what is it? 5 hours." He goes, "The next day you have bills to pay." He goes, "You worry about it?" He goes, "It's only 5 hours. Don't worry about it. Nothing. Don't need to stress." And I had a plan of like my friend was going to bring like a little old school, like a DVD, like a CD player, or like a iPad, whatever, and like plug it in some speakers, get some speakers and plug it in and play music. That's all. And Benny Friedman, his brother's a sheikh over there, so he was in town, so we're going to play. And we got a musician to come in, and it was rocking, and they loved it. And even the musician, I'm like, "Thank you so much for coming." He's like, "I love it. This is amazing." But we stress about all these things, and it's crazy how much money is spent. And the next day, like you can imagine, let's say, a wedding that I don't know how much it is, 20,000, 40,000, 20, 40,000 easily. Yeah, at least $20,000, $40,000 for a new couple. That's a year's worth of sustaining themselves. And so the Rebbe is saying, the Rebbe is complaining about this. This is like his side note, but he's saying this is like, it bothers the Rebbe a lot. And also because what happens is, because one person does it, so then it becomes a standard, so everyone has to do it. Aval, so that's how it is nowadays. Aval was, back in the day, it was very different. And what we're going to learn is something that it's we have to understand how to analyze it, but I think it's a good message to learn and to think and how we see things. You'll see. Allah said, Kanias Abayis, they buy a house. Well, that's a good house. What do they do? Man dachashmei, el shmai, el mai, the kivan shabin adiyad, chadash, zugan nasi, terch, buys lots of being that they couldn't rent, there was no renting, and they didn't house themselves. What do they do? Haysifu, ubanu ched neisam lebes shahayav mikadim. They would add another room onto the house already had. So just put like another room, put some wood, whatever it was, a piece of, simple. That's all it was. And maybe make a hole so like there's a door. That's what it was. And this is by the Frierdiker Rebbe. And this was the place they'll make this everlasting edifice, this little dinky room. And furthermore, now, again, the Rebbe is like getting into us a little bit. You have to clean the room. Meaning, and I think they're referring to even if you get these people to come over, you have to clean the room. You don't want the poor person with these stepping with these muddy boots. I feel even not just the poor person, even a simple person, you don't want him into your house. Even the people that by themselves come in because they know they're meant to come. You're all like stressed, and like, oh, be careful. Don't touch it. Don't touch anything. Just go in and sit down and eat your food and leave. This is the welcome that people do. It's not enough to wash the hands 3 times for bread. But Shema, Yishar, Eze, Kesem, Binyan Ebayis. Maybe they're going to leave a mark, going to dirt, something, touch it. Don't touch the pictures. Just leave. So he's saying it's not a walking environment. Back then, how was it? It was opposites. As the Frierdiker himself explained, before they gave it over to him, this binyan, this building, everlasting edifice, this little room, what did they do? Children, they brought children in. We know there's a custom to bring children in. When you have a new apartment, whatever, so that's what they did. When a new chassan kala, there's a few things you're meant to do, like bring some salt, some bread, and you have kids, say psukim. That's how they did it by the Frierdiker. But the way he says it is, well.
Sorry, I knew when a husband and wife get married, you bring the kids to the house to sit.
Yeah. Keep talking Jewish things.
The next day?
When did you do
Before or?
So here implying it was before. But this is sort of the point. Let's not get caught up with the details, which we should know, but also understand it's the Rebbe trying to teach us a way of approaching life. Because practically, I don't know, most people go to a hotel room the first night, so you could try to manage it. Or you could do it even before you go in, before people move in. I think we did it. Yeah, we did it with one of the couples, but when my kids came, we did it before they moved in.
Great,
like, yeah, thank you. I'm sure they'll be very happy to know. Says what is this again? It wasn't that he brought the rich kids into the house. The public Talmud Torah. You can imagine what it looked like back in the day, the Talmud Torah. They didn't have much money. The amount of kids going wasn't many. And the kids that were going, they were very poor, so how much would they pay already? And even if they would pay, how much were they paying already in those days? The place was a run-down shack. They weren't the fancy kids looking nice. Although nowadays, Baruch Hashem, we're so affluent, even like the contrast between poor and rich is so minimal. Back in the day, poor kid walked around with dirty, muddy boots. And that guy's going to your house with dirty, muddy boots. So it was like, we're happy now they just send them to a Talmud Torah. And together, bring the Malam would come and he would teach them in this little room. And this was the chinuch, this was the education. What does it mean to build a binyan aliyad? That in this house, that what happened we just read is what made the Frierdiker Ram, the previous Lubavitcher Ram. This was the hanacha, this was the education he got that helped him become the Rebbe.
What was the education? Did they brought him
He had a little side room as his house. And the first people that came in was these little kids, stinky, dirty kids with their muddy boots. And they went in and they had the malamed and they sat down and they learned Torah.
The side room, it was my parents' room, or just like a.
We said he said they back in the day they just build like an addition onto the house. Lubavitch just had like wooden walls or whatever. Just build a few more walls, 3 walls, a little what we would call a sukkah. That was the house. No, yeah, that's what they did. Only so the Frierdiker. If the truth is that probably most of them are poor and they wouldn't do it. Just put a little fence in the house and they lived in one bedrooms.
They have their
To be
own.
in the same area. as
They
the
probably
other
had
one?
their own entrance, like that room was their house.
Was it like a back house or was it?
It was
an addition?
attached. It's
Attached.
like, you have a house, then you make a room with its own entrance, then you make another room with its own entrance, and you make another room with it for each of the kids as they get married. But it's not like some palace. It's not like some
Yeah.
three family house
Yeah.
with a, it's like, it's like,
Very simple. Yeah. And this is how the Frierdiker was
how they're all
educated.
cooking in the same kitchen,
So now there's a lot to learn from this. It's very important. When we're not saying, there's once heard there was a certain period, I think it was in the 70s, there was a fancy thing called Hollywood kitchens and wall-to-wall carpeting. That was like the fancy thing. They had wall-to-wall carpeting and these Hollywood kitchens. So the Rebbe was is complaining about people feeling this need. So there's a guy till today I heard that he has carpeted whatever floor, but it's not all the way to the wall. It's missing a little bit. It's like a tafach, just before. So I'm sure he's a good guy and he's very chassidishe, but that's not what the Rebbe meant. The wall-to-wall carpeting is not physical carpeting when you walls. It's a mindset. I need to have the fanciest things and the best things. I want to look cool. And that's what the Rebbe is complaining about. You can have wall-to-wall carpeting and it doesn't mean anything to you. You can have nothing, it means everything to you. And the Rebbe was saying that. And the Rebbe is saying here, he's not saying that if you want to be chassidishe, you have to go to your parents' home and ask them to build an addition and then get some kid and say, step on the mud and then come into my house. That's not what we're saying. You all get it? But you get what we are saying? That what's important? House is, they say when I was 2 years ago or something, we went for Shabbos to base Chana. They had the camp, and with Manas Friedman, we were there for Shabbos Tish B'Av.
That was 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago. Well, it wasn't last year. So one of the things that Mr. Shaftin said, there was someone, I don't know what the whole story was, but there was a lady that she became from, but like she was in the process. She went to like a Pagisha. Pagisha is like what Chabad on campus does now. That's like the original. So you come for a Shabbos and go nights, and so people host them. So this lady, she went, her and a friend, I think, got put up in someone's house, and they were very sweet, very cordial. And they went and they gave him this nice room to sleep and woke up. And they woke up and they realized, like, I don't see another bedroom. I only see one bedroom. Like, where did these other people sleep? And they realized that they gave them their bedroom. And they slept, I don't know where. Yeah, it's pretty wild. This is chassidishe chinuch. Yeah, I know who the guy is, and he's like, does a lot of chesed nowadays. So now the Rebbe says like this. Now you're going to ask yourself, you're going to learn this story, and you're going to say to yourself, this is a crazy story. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't live in Lubavitch. I don't have these issues. What are you talking to me? So you see, this story was known at the time when it happened. Nishmas man was forgotten. Aval the Frierdiker said this. Once he was already a Rebbe. That he knew he knew that in the end this is going to be publicized. He didn't just say it's just dumb. He said it because he knew it was going to be publicized. This is a lesson to teach us how we build a house, a Jewish home. But if you're going to say, oh, what do you mean? It's the Frierdiker and it's only for a name. So he says, only the people that are meant to be a nasi would know this. But the fact that we got told about the story, we heard the story, and the Rebbe is like, the fact that we got told, the Rebbe is like, I'm telling you, because this is shaykh to you. This is something we can emulate in our own way. It's like it says, Amr Azal says in Pikei Avos, you and Nim bnei Beisecha. The poor people should be in your house. They should be comfortable. To have the aniyim, and then first the poor people, and then it's your house. Now I'm going to skip because of time, but here he goes into this whole. Basically says people that do it, even when they do it, they do it just for publicity, and they do it for someone to get a pat on the back, and then it becomes. If you see, he goes in the brackets over there. He goes, we know anyone know how to read this word? It's very funny. See in the second last paragraph. Amnam says, however, you can bring in poor people in order. Tap them on the shoulder and say, "Oh, good job." You have and they'll point him to be the head of a. What is this? Chairman. This is learning how to read English in Hebrew. To be a chairman, a medal. Meaning a person can do these things, but why are they doing it? It's for the publicity stunts. It's like the what's it called? Politicians. They come to the community and you think because they care about you, it's all politics. Then they get photos. Yeah, or he was Federation, or that will be recognized to give a tzedakah for the tzedakah Federation. But what they're saying, they're doing it not for the right reason. And he goes and they do it to the point, like it says in Shalos Tshuvos, Rashba, and it's brought down in Magen Avram, which is Shulchan Aruch, mitzvah l'farsim mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to publicize how the mitzvah. But the Rebbe is being sarcastic about it, and he's saying that they're not doing it with the proper hanacha. And he goes, but this is not the kavanah to bring just people in. They're going to give you more credence. Hakavanah hish yeshiv lebeisa yiladim aniyim, poor kids, im hamalamed shalhem, with their teacher. Shilmudu imayim comments aleph ah. Teach them comments aleph ah. The simplest of things. Even though these kids are not going to tap them on the shoulder and say shkoyach, and it's not going to be publicized in the newspapers what he did. He wasn't going to point it or anything because they're too young. They're not even 18 or 20. Next page. This has to be the way you mechanech your home. This is like from last week's talk. You build a new home. This is the way to prepare yourself, to take care of yourself. He's doing this way. And then a house full of Hashem's blessings. This is beautiful. So now I'm going to skip it on time-wise, but the story said in the beginning. So basically, it's a quick story. Whoever didn't get it. Basically, the Ravkah Ram and Rav Chaim Soloveitchik were in the same place. Probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gedolim of that generation. That's before the war. That's the real deal. And the Ravkah Ram, he had a question: is the obligation of marriage just is like one obligation that husband has to his wife from the beginning of marriage, and then just continues on, or is it every day it's renewed? And what's the difference? Practical. So what's the difference? Who cares? So the practical difference is if you're married to two people. Now, even though by this point in society, his world, no one got. You don't have two wives anymore. That was like 1,000. That's the Chaim Ben Gershom was 1,000 years ago. But this is how he thought. He thought this is Torah world. Like, I have to understand this. What's the obligation? Is it permanent or is every day new? So basically, he discussed it with him, and Chaim Brisker said, Mazel Tov. So why saying Mazel Tov? He goes, because according to the second opinion, that it's every moment. So now you just got married. It's as if you just got married, so you deserve Mazel Tov. But it brought down chassidus and the Musa that is also a marriage concept within ourselves, which is the neshama and the body. So the Rebbe says, even though in this story we're not sure what's the result. Is it the first opinion or the second opinion? He goes, but for sure between the neshama and the guf, you turn being my neshama, ein makom l'sfeikus. Zeh avade inyan shemishchadesh b'choyim. This is for sure something that happens every day. So every day we so to speak get married, and neshama comes into the body, and it's that fusion, that's a oneness, and that's getting married. Like it says, Hadash l'Bekarim. Yeah, to finish it off. And with this marriage, of the body and the neshama, hine habachina haschala harishona he lay beofen shereid v'acha kavod. It's on the way that you run after honor. V'amra hine kam gadol. You saw here, great person. I'm getting married. Look at chashvayam. Tzarichim lahanik loy kavod. I have to give me all this honor. I'm a ben avnitz of Yaakov. I'm ready. I'm good enough. I'm a person that's going to feel Hashem's mitzvahs. But what do you have to do? What's the right approach? You worry about your friend's child. That he can't give him anything. He's poor, he has nothing. Not just you're going to give him money, say that kid can go learn somewhere out of your house, but you bring him in not just to your koyad, until you're in a house, into your bedroom. Like the story of this guy that these guests slept in his bed, in his room. And there you bring in the poor person's kid. Not to fulfill Hashem's will, through he learning Teres Hashem, you do it happily. Such a powerful idea. But the Rebbe is saying that what's the key to starting being at a yad? The first thing is you think about someone else. And it's, that's what he's saying. And your house, so we said in the beginning, we asked, what is guests? Once a week, Shabbos, what's the Rebbe saying? The guest, not just the guest, always the guest in your bedroom. Now, of course, it doesn't mean you have to take someone you feel very uncomfortable with and bring them to your bedroom, make yourself feel more uncomfortable. That's all we're saying. But the reason why we're learning this, and the reason why the Rebbe is telling us this, is helping us look at ourselves and look at how we approach things. And we can ask ourselves, what's my first thought? Is my first thought about myself? Even when it's coming to my own home, what's my first thought? Is it myself? Or am I thinking about other people? How can I help someone else? What does the other person need? And it can be simple things, and it can be big things. Like we said last week, we all have to realize we have what to give. We have to answer, how can we give? How can we add this, See, and this Rabbi says it clearly, finish it off. And this is the lesson for all of us till the end of the generation, until Moshiach. The Friedrich Rebbe, the story was publicized to all of us. We had the generation with his sheep, or his cattle, his herd. Even everything in Torah, even where novel someone else is gonna bring in something new that we've never heard before. This also given to Moshe. I'm saying this is not an impossible thing for you. Say, me, I don't know. And this is, I'm saying, the Rebbe is saying this, he's like, we can all do this. Now, again, don't be a martyr, but appreciate this and say to yourself, hey, how could I do this? How can I? So how? So I guess let's ask, how can we do this? Because also the last thing I'll go out, so I just finish up. The Rebbe says, and even we say Torah is not in heavens, because it said, don't say Torah is in heavens. How am I going to get it? The Rebbe says Torah is not in heaven, and even if it is in heavens, you have to go get it. Meaning to say, even this is hard for you, you should still do it. So how? Like we said in the beginning from Rambam, how do we make it our own? What does this mean? What's a way we could think about this and do something in this direction? Anyone want to give it a shot? What?
Good question.
Good question. And this is essentially, this question is every time you learn. You could also say, look, I didn't learn enough. I don't really know. That's also a good answer. But the question we got to ask ourselves is that like, and this was very clear. The Rebbe saying he's talking to us. I guess there's a few things we can learn here. Well, first of all, are we doing things because of the right thing to do? We're doing it because of honor, because it makes us feel good. Like the guys, like they were saying, the guy invites people over, so he gets like elected or whatever. So we're not going to elect anything, but like, what's our motives? And realize that there's people that need help. I think that's also a big important message. There's poor people, and there's begashus poor people, and also spiritually, and also realizing to build a home. It's like, wow, to build a home, your mindset is, how can I be helpful? And this is why I think it's such a beautiful thing for marriage. Because what's your first mindset? You're sticking with someone else. To have a good marriage, you can't be always thinking about yourself. What do I get from it? If we think that way, then it's a recipe for a hard time. But what the lesson they're saying is, like, a recipe for a good marriage is being able to think about someone else, and to the extent that even in the place that you're the most private and comfortable, and like you don't want anyone in. When you get married, you have to invite your spouse into your room, not just your physical room, but into your life, into things that are very personal. That, if done well, if you learn how to communicate well, they'll know things about you more than your parents know, and you'll learn about things yourself through talking to them. I know more about myself than I ever did, and I still speaking to my wife, and therefore she knows things more than I knew about myself 5-10 years ago. And that's and that's sort of a part, because it's an uncomfortable. You don't want them to get it dirty. You talk about these things, they're uncomfortable, and make your room dirty, and it's very vulnerable. But you do it, and you become the nasi of yourself. It's a very, very interesting. Yeah. So I guess like we said last week, and it starts, but this Aveda doesn't start when you get married. I remember when I got engaged, I thought to myself, God, it's my chance to fix myself. Once you get married, Yom Kippur, and then you're good. So you try for 5 seconds, and you get married, and then in being married, you're not comfortable enough. So you behave like a mensch, and after a while, you go back to you didn't really change. So the part is the change starts now.
Wait, how do you stay a mensch?
Who says I'm a mensch? No. But no. So you have to. It starts like 6 months in, and then you realize you're not a mensch, and then you have to make the choice. Before, you're not making the choice. It's something from external. And so now it's about, and this you can do now. You can invite people over, do things that make you a little uncomfortable, but the right thing to do. How can I help someone? How can I do something that's more, how can I be a help to the community? Or my roommates, like my kids, when I get them to clean up, sometimes they argue, and they're like, I did my job. It's like, unless I need them, like, they want to go to the park, Erev Shabbos. So I want to go to the park, so I'm like, fine, just set up the table, and then you can go. So most people have jobs, but there's always things that need to be done that it's not an official job. So some kids are like, I did my job, I'm done. It's like, but the table is not done, and like, it's like, okay, it bothers me a lot. It's like so selfish. It's like, it's like, I did my job, but the job wasn't completed. He's a little kid, so what? Whatever. I'm saying for ourselves, like, are we looking out for ourselves all the time, or are we there to support and help? But it's telling you, being able to do this, it makes the transition into marriage very much easier. Otherwise, it's like very hard because you butt heads. Your yeshus, your ego and your way of doing things and your thoughts, and you have to like deal with someone else's way. And it's like, it's hard. Whereas when you're alone and think about other people and see other people, and yeah, it just gets much better, much easier. Yeah, if people see this, you see how the people see how they could do that in regards to their roommates and things like that. What's an example? No.
You're asking for way too much dirty laundry right now.
They don't have an example they want to give. We'll share, Tom for sharing.
Have a kids share in your apartment. Bring your home.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay.
You have a duck?
Oh,
I do. Yes.
thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.